Internet jazz lovers land. I'm Jean, the Jazz and Blues audiophile, with you once again. This time for part 3 of a continuing musical biography of one of the greatest legends and jazz giants, the late great Lionel Hampton. When we left at the last episode, we were in 1947. I was getting ready to cue up this track that's playing in the background. Why do I want you to hear a part of this track? Well, it's because by 1947, Lionel Hampton had reached a maturity on his instrument. There's a part of the time when a musician is learning an instrument and starting to express himself on the instrument. In the early days, of course, he's still mastering the instrument. He's still getting the hang of it, and sometimes it shows a little bit on some of the recordings. But then after a certain while, a certain time of playing, he masters the instrument, and he reaches this point, which I call the point of maturity, where he's got it all together, and he can really, really express whatever idea he gets in his mind, musical idea. He can express it on his instrument. And by 1947, Lionel Hampton had reached that step in his evolution, his personal evolution as a musician, and we can see it on this fine recording that's playing in the background here. But before I talk a little bit more about this recording playing in the background, the great Willie Smith on the alto saxophone. If you like these little musical biographies I'm doing on different artists, and I want to do a series like this on several of the great jazz legends, and I'm going to call it probably Giants of Jazz. It's going to be an ongoing thing, and I'm going to give you a little clip, a little extract of some of their work at different periods in a chronological order, so that you can have an idea of the music that was put out by these great musicians. And then you can decide, hey, I'm interested by this particular musician at this particular period of his recording career, and I'd like to purchase and go out and buy me some of those records and have them at home and be able to listen to them for myself. So this is why I'm doing this. I'm doing this as a simple jazz fan. I've been a jazz fanatic ever since I've been 14 years old. And so if I can communicate a little bit of this love for this great, tremendous music to other people, this is the reason why this channel exists. This is the reason why I do it. I'm not being monetized by YouTube. I don't care about monetization. I don't care about having a huge public. Sure, it's better when more people watch you. You can have the chance to spread the jazz message a little further on to more people. But hey, if I'm talking to 4 people, 20 people, or 100,000 people, doesn't matter to me. What matters is the love for this music that some of you might contract. Some of you might catch the jazz virus. Viruses are popular by the times that we're living in right now. So maybe you could catch another kind of virus, the jazz virus. That's my goal. Because let's face it, we got a lot of time to listen to some music these days with everything that's going on in the world, coronavirus and all that stuff. So anyway, if you like these videos, as I was saying, go ahead and subscribe right away to my station and my channel, and put a like, put some thumbs up. That makes the video slightly more popular, maybe slightly more probable that it gets suggested on YouTube at one point. So go ahead and leave some comments below. Tell me if you like these little musical biographies I've embarked on there recently. If you're interested in that, what you think about Lionel Hampton, what you think about jazz, whatever, go ahead and share. I'm not dangerous. I don't bite. I can't bite you even if I wanted to. I'm behind a screen here, millions of miles away or kilometers away from wherever you are, behind your screen. So, anyway, coming back to what's playing right now. 1947, Lionel Hampton brings his all-star to the Civic Auditorium in California. And he's going to be recorded really well for the time, 1947. One of the first, I think, tape recordings of a live concert, which gives this album quite a good sound, actually. And it's him and his all-stars. His all-stars being, at the time, of course, Hampton is on vibes, Charlie Shaver is on trumpet, Barney Kessel's on guitar, Lee Young is on drums, Willie Smith, the great Willie Smith. This guy, listen to one of the most underrated alto saxophones in all of jazz history. This is a giant. And I don't believe he has any albums by himself as a leader. I think most of his work was done as a sideman. He goes on to play after this with the Gene Krupa Trio, which he'll make some phenomenal recordings with. But he's an absolutely wonderful alto sax man, Willie Smith. And then he's got Slam Stewart on bass. Tommy Todd is on piano, and Corky Corcoran on tenor sax. I'm sorry, that was Corky Corcoran, not Willie Smith. We heard Willie Smith at the beginning. That was Corky Corcoran, another great. Will go on to make several recordings with the Harry James Orchestra. Willie Smith will go on to be with the Gene Krupa Trio. But anyway, Willie Smith is still an underrated sax player, and so is Corky Corcoran, as a matter of fact, in the tenor sax section. There's the great Slam Stewart on bass. But anyway, at this point, as I say, Hampton has reached his maturity on the instrument, and I want you to hear a part of the solo he's going to play on this famous number. What we're hearing in the background is, of course, Stardust, recorded live. Now, the fact that it was recorded live, of course, gives the musicians plenty of time to stretch out and solo for a long time on these numbers. Something that was still pretty much rare in 1947, because we were still mostly putting out 78 RPM records with a time limit of 3 minutes 30, 3 minutes 40 seconds on each side. So a piece of music could not last more than 3 minutes and 45 seconds, something like that. And you had to share the solo spot with other guys, other people on the number. You didn't have much time. You had to really condense whatever musical ideas you had to condense them in a very, very short time frame. And that's also part of the genius of those recordings from back in the 30s and 40s. The musicians actually were able to do this, condense a bunch of ideas into just a small, short solo spot for many of the musicians. But now, with the advent of tape recording, it's going to allow for much longer pieces to be recorded. And then the LP will appear in 1948. And these pieces will be able to be put on 10-inch long-playing 33 RPM records. Then eventually you'll get the longer playing one that's became the standard format. So on this number, Lionel gets to stretch out, and here's what he does on the vibraphone. So you're gonna hear for yourself how much of a maturity he's reached on the vibraphone. So here's the part where his solo is coming on. Here he is. And this will become one of his signature pieces, the Great Stardust. Will become one of those pieces where he really takes his time and stretches out for some long, really long and extended vibraphone solos. Just wonderful stuff. And you can tell Lionel's enjoying it. He's doing those sounds in the background, which is his trademark. This is just a wonderful recording. I wish I could play it all. It's absolutely beautiful. The solo on it is wonderful. The solo by every one of the All-Stars. It would be Charlie Shavers on trumpet, the great Willie Smith on saxophone, Corky Corcoran. Everybody shines on this. It's a wonderful recording. Highly recommended. It's called Lionel Hampton and his All-Stars. Stardust is the name of the album. Recorded live in 1947. Wonderful sound for 1947. Actually, absolutely impressive for 1947. So very, very much pleasing to the ear. You know, it's not the old 78 sound. So for those who are worried about that, don't worry about it. Sounds really good. Anyhow, after this recording, Lionel continues to evolve, and the thing that's going to happen that's very interesting is that Hampton has always been a very exuberant performer. He moves a lot around the bandstand, whether he's in front of a big band or with a small group. He hits those vibes, man, and he's moving, and sometimes he lifts his mallets up in the air, he screams, he shouts, he dances around, does little dance steps. He'll shout at some of the band members. He'll even get up on a drum, actually stand on a drum on a floor tom, and just play on the other drums while standing on a floor tom. He'll do all kinds of stuff that's really, really a lot of showmanship. He's very much a master entertainer and showman. And he's going to work the crowd into a frenzy, actually. And there's many, many accounts of Lionel working the crowd into an absolute frenzy with some of his numbers that he was performing. And in that sense, he's very much a forerunner to rock and roll. That's going to appear on the scene in 1956, you know, with, of course, Jerry Lee Lewis, Little Richard, Chuck Berry, Elvis Presley eventually, and all that. And the frenzy of the rhythm and blues, that's, you know, rhythm and blues, which is going to appear near the end of the 40s and transform into rock and roll. But he's a forerunner of this. And on the next piece I want you to hear the example of this on a number he recorded in 1951. And this is actually incredible. The name of the number is called Old Rock. Is that forerunner enough for you? It's called Old Rock. It's a number he records with his big band. Here's who he's got with him on this little piece that I'm going to play an extract from, 1951. Okay, so a good 5 years before the actual rock and roll craze takes over the world. He's got with him on this big band recording, and listen to the musicians who are playing with him. This is incredible also. He's got Benny Bailey and Quincy Jones and Ed Mullins and Leo Shepard, Walter. He's got Leo Shepard and Walter Williams on trumpets. All right, that's his trumpet section. Then on the trombone, he's got Jimmy Cleveland and Al Gray together, along with Paul Lee, and Benny Powell on trombone. He's got Bobby Platter, Jerome Richardson on alto saxophone, Gil Bernal and Johnny Board on tenor saxophone, Curtis Lowe on tenor and baritone, Ben Keenard on baritone. He, of course, is at the vibraphone, Lionel Hampton. Milt Buckner is on piano, which he was going to have a pretty good association with for a long time. He was going to record with Milt Buckner over the years many times. He's got Billy Mackel on guitar. Billy Mackel is going to stay with Hampton like he's been with Hampton since the 40s, and he's going to stay with Hampton right up in the late 70s. He's going to record with Hampton. He's a wonderful, formidable guitarist, another underrated great of jazz as far as I'm concerned. He's got Roy Johnson on bass, Ellie Barty on drums. And so here's a number that he records in 1951 called Old Rock. And tell me if this is not announcing rock and roll to you, anyway, to your ears. Here it is, 1951, Old Rock. And he's going to sing on this one, of course. That already sounds like R&B to me, you know. is not announcing the arrival of rock and roll, rhythm and blues and rock and roll. And Hampton is a master at this. As I told you, he works the crowds into a frenzy, a literal frenzy. Sometimes people start throwing chairs, he starts standing up on tables. People go nuts during his shows. He really creates an electric atmosphere. He's exuberant, he's full of passion, and he's playing with a vengeance. That's the great Lionel Hampton, his big band, when he's performing. Incredible stuff. And yet, he can go from this shouting atmosphere to a soft whisper with a small group and play some of the most wonderful ballads and wonderful musics you've ever heard in your life. That's the great Lionel Hampton. He could do it all. And he has this absolute charisma. When he gets on stage, he electrifies. He self-electrifies. He becomes a human dynamo. He becomes an expression of this exuberance, this powerhouse performer with his powerhouse big band. This is really powerful music. So he's starting to get more and more popular. This is a recording done in October 17th of 1951. This number called Old Rock was recorded. As far as I'm concerned, it's a landmark number, along with Hey Bop a Rebop and Flying Home. It's really in this kind of rhythm and blues, jazz kind of mix that's really rocking the house down. At the same time, now he's gonna, 1951, he's starting to get more and more popular as the years go by, because he's reassembled his big band. He's going back on tour with his big band. He's bringing this big band to Europe. And his first big European tour will be in 1953, where he brings his big band to Paris, of course, and other parts of Europe and France and all over the place. He's going to go on a triumphal tour, and he's going to do some recordings. He's going to make a lot of recordings in Europe. In France, amongst other places, he'll be recorded very many times. A lot of his stuff has been issued. Recordings in the 50s and the 60s and even in the 70s have been done in Paris, actually, either in a live concert form or sometimes in the studio. But on this next recording I'm going to play for you, it was from his first tour in Europe. And this was recorded in France, and it was recorded, of all places, I'll tell you where, just give me a second here to punch up my reference. Here it is. It was recorded in Paris at the École Normale de Musique at the Salle Pleyel on September 28, 1953. So I imagine if it was at l'École Normale de Musique, that's a music school, so he's playing probably in front of a student audience, people who are studying music. And the recording I'm going to play is his version of September in the Rain, a great, beautiful number that he plays in a trio format with Billy Mackel, his longtime guitarist, and William Monk Montgomery on electric bass in 1953. When I tell you Hampton was a forerunner of many things, he's in the avant-garde of a lot of stuff in jazz, and people ignore this often. He's using for the first time here an electric bass player in 1953. That was highly unheard of. So here he is. I'm going to play you this tune. It's a wonderful, soft number, laid-back number called September in the Rain. He's performing this in 1943 at the École Normale de Musique in Paris. And here's what he sounded like on this great number right here. Lionel was a master of these long introductions to a number. He would play forerunning, very long introduction on the vibes before jumping in actually to the actual melody. Now, what he would do with these long introductions, there he goes. And the rhythm comes in. With these long introductions, he would make the entry into the song more spectacular. Just a wonderful, easygoing, soft version of September in the Rain. Beautiful number, classic number now in jazz. Been played by most of the greats. So anyhow, this is the kind of stuff that he was doing in small group. He was constantly shuffling the kind of musicians he would play with around, and he would go on to play, as we're going to see in this continuing survey of his musical biography. He plays with all kinds of musicians from all kinds of schools. Doesn't matter to him what kind of jazz you're playing, what school you're from. Hampton's willing to play it. He will even go disco in the 70s and late 70s and record an actual full-fledged disco album. He just records all kinds of stuff. He does soul albums in the 70s. He records with everybody and pretty much anybody that's willing to play with him. So it's really fascinating when you look at his career, because he's got a lot of recordings. Now, after this return from a triumphal tour in Europe, and this beautiful stop here he has in Paris where he records this album. This is another album available again on this is available on BMG Records, actually, the subsidiary, part of RCA. I guess the RCA record label has been issued as Lionel Hampton's Paris All Stars. That's all it's called. And it's on a CD issued a couple of years back in the 1980s, I believe. In any case, the great thing about Hampton is he records with all kinds of groups, and some of the greatest recordings he did in the early 50s, some of the greatest recordings that he actually performed on, was done with a wonderful trio of musicians called, and they were, Oscar Peterson at the piano, Ray Brown at the bass, and Buddy Rich on drums, and Hampton, of course, on the vibraphone. He's going to record some sides for Clef, Norgan, and Verve Records, all part of the Norman Grant's family of records. He's going to record between 1951 and 1954, I believe it is, a number of recordings, masterpieces in jazz, as far as I'm concerned, another set of small group masterpieces. With this accompanied by these great musicians, and they have been reissued on a 5 CD set called The Complete Verve 1950s, early 1950s recordings of Lionel Hampton with his quartet or quintet, because there's a couple of musicians that add themselves on these over the years, and they've reissued all these recordings they did. But the basic part of the musicians on this are, of course, the great Buddy Rich, Ray Brown, and Oscar Peterson. And I'm going to play you an extract of his version, his recorded studio version of the first track we heard, the Great Stardust, that was recorded in 1947 live, in a live version. We're going to hear a studio version here that is another absolute gem of a performance by Lionel. This is him, accompanied by Buddy Rich, Ray Brown, and Oscar Peterson. Here he is performing Stardust. Now, these small group recordings will give him a huge chance to stretch out. There are only 4 musicians there in the studios. Each has plenty of time, plenty of space for some great soloing. and everybody on these recordings that I've just recently become familiar with and I purchased is wonderful. The performances by Oscar Peterson at the piano are incredible. Ray Brown at the bass, of course, is always his excellent self. And the great Buddy Rich at the drums really shines here on a lot of the accompaniment that he does. And of course, Hampton. Hampton just blows everybody away on these performances. I cannot recommend these enough. Again, they've been reissued on Verve Records. 5 CD set called The Complete Verve. I forget now, I don't have the name in front of me, but Oscar Peterson and whatever, small group, Lionel Hampton recordings from the early 50s. If you do a quick search, you'll find it on the internet. But this performance here, amongst others, is phenomenal for the great solo again that Hampton will stretch out on. And I'm gonna forward the piece now to the part of that solo, just so you can hear how much of a master of his instrument, a complete master, and the complete maturity now that he had finally reached on his instrument, where he could razzle and dazzle just about anybody, and just freak you out by the things he could do on the vibraphone. I'm just forward it up here and let you hear a little extract of this. Here it is. Listen to this. Listen to that. Just wonderful stuff. Listen to what's coming up now. Look out. Listen to this. Incredible stuff. Just wonderful, breathtaking stuff from Hampton. He's showing on this recording, especially if you listen to the whole solo, and I'm just giving you a few little extracts here, but the whole solo is mesmerizing. It's just breathtaking. This proves beyond the shadow of a doubt that by the early 50s, this was recorded in 1952, Hampton had reached full maturity on the instrument. He was a total master of that instrument. And I'm gonna have to leave you on that note because we've reached the 30-minute mark for this video. But we'll be back. We'll take it back from here, from 1952, 53, 54, on the next episode as we continue our survey of a musical biography of this jazz giant that was Lionel Hampton at the vibraphones. So until next time, I want to tell you, don't forget to subscribe to this channel, put a like, thumbs up on, and some comments below if you want. And I'll see you at the next episode, part 4 of this survey. Jazz on, everybody.